Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. And sorry it's been a while. I keep trying to record and then I get really busy, and see, it's been so long that I'm like not even talking properly. So today, as you know from the title of the video, is how I plot my novels. Basically, it's just gonna be a quick video where I just tell you how I plan my books, and hopefully will give you some ideas. And you might have heard of some of these methods if you watch other author-tubers, which you should. Usually the very first thing I do when plotting a novel is the brain dump Google Doc. This is where I just have usually a basic story idea, or sometimes more in depth of an idea, and I just write out everything that I have in my head. There is no organization on this Google Doc. It's literally just, here's some characters, here's some random scenes I have ideas for, here's some like the general storyline. It starts here, it ends here. Just anything random that has to do with that story. Any ideas in your head, put on that doc, maybe your inspiration if you had one. And then after that is when you start to get to know your characters, because if you don't have good characters, a good internal conflict, you're not going to have a good story. This template, I will link it below so that you can take it and make a copy of it and use it yourself. It's free. I actually got it from Abbie, so I will link her channel or the video if I can find it. So she created this main character profile template, and I use this every time for all my characters. It goes really in depth, and so here is the basics: the character's name, their role in the story, which at this point, I kind of don't remember what that was supposed to mean, but I think it meant like protagonist, antagonist kind of thing. If they have any other specific role or importance in the story. Shh. Their physical description, age, and then MBTI type or Enneagram personality type. If you don't know what that is, I'm not explaining that right now. You can look it up, and if I can find any helpful information, I will also link that below. But that's just important if you want to get to know your character's general personality type better. It can really help to make the characters feel real. This whole section is the internal conflict section. So the most important things you need to know about your character: what is his or her greatest fear, their inner motivation, their kryptonite, which is like their weakness, what is his or her misbelief about the world, a lesson they need to learn, what is the best thing in their life, what is the worst thing in their life, what does he or she most often look down on people for, what makes their heart feel alive, what makes him or her feel loved, and who was the last person that made them feel that way. Top 3 things that they value most in life. And this section is where you want to spend the most time. Again, I'm not going super in depth on this because Abbie, one of my favorite author-tubers, she has tons and tons and tons of information on this, like so many videos. She like never stops talking about it, but she's great, so definitely watch her videos. External conflict, it's not necessary. It's really not. This is kind of weird if you write fantasy. It's really helpful if you're writing like a contemporary fiction of some sort, modern times, Earth, humans. And then character goals and the backstory scene at the end, you also want to spend a ton of time on, because that has to do with internal conflict. Moving on, the next outline that I use, and yes, I use a lot of outlines, but hopefully it really helps me to understand my characters and my story and write a decent book. Next one is the 3-act story structure, and this one is also thanks to Abbie that I first heard about it. I don't know if I don't think she created it. I don't really know, I'm sorry. But I hear a lot of authors using this, and there's tons of information on it. I know there's another, like, very similar version, and I think it's, like, the book Save the Cat Writes a Novel. I've never read that, but I've heard a lot of authors mentioning that book, and it sounds very similar. The outline has some different terms, but it's basically the same. Basically, it's you split your story into 3 acts. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and then you take a plot point. All of these pink highlighted ones are plot points, and it's basically every time something that matters to the character happens that moves the plot forward, because internal conflict is your action, basically, for the story. It moves the story forward, and that's what makes the story important. If you don't have any internal conflict for your character, then, like, there's just a bunch of stuff on the outside happening. It's not interesting, like, at all. So I'm not going to go over this in depth, but I will also link it as a template below that you can make a copy. And then, as I do, I make a copy from this original version, and then I basically under each section I type whatever I want it to happen. I insert that there. That goes to that. So under hook, the internal conflict, desire versus fear boiling beneath the surface for a long time. I usually type out what is in that under the section of hook, the way that I will show the hook, the desire versus fear boiling beneath the surface for a long time in my specific story. Another idea for how you could do this is just leave everything on this Google Doc how it is, and then go over to however you want to plan the story further. My next step would be a chapter by chapter outline, so I write everything that happens for each chapter, and you could just type it there. But I personally type on this Google Doc at each section. Okay, so now fourth step is the chapter by chapter outline. Now this one, it gets a little crazy for me. I honestly should just be calling this step draft 1 because of how in depth I go with it. So this is an example from one of my stories, and I didn't really want to show it, but I wanted it to show what it looks like all filled out. So I basically start by just typing in each chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down. However many I think I might have, you can always add and delete later on as you're filling it out. And then I go under each section and I start adding. So this has extra little information on here, like these numbers were her age during each section, prologue, basically anything important to the character I put under each chapter, dialogue ideas that I have, a lot of internal stuff, some external plot things. Also, this fun little idea I had is I put the seasons. So I put like the little fall leaf when it was fall, and then when it changed to the next season, I put the next little emoji. Then I also highlight any like flashbacks, end flashbacks. Third pinch point. So these are the plot points from the 3-act story outline, and then I explain some of that. And then this got crazy. There was a lot of stuff happening on this one. 16 pages. It does not need to be that bad. I mean, that in-depth at all. I've definitely had way less information on one of these, and then this one I think is the longest one. So it's basically like a first draft. And then after that, I start writing the story. Another thing I like to do is make a book binder, which for fantasy worlds is a really good idea. I have any information about the world. I usually draw maps, things like a list of characters, character information, stuff about the world, so like kingdoms. And this one's not really filled out at all. I put the magic system, just literally anything you could think of. that has to do with the world. It's really helpful for knowing your world. And then I put the outlines for the actual book itself in there as well. And that is basically it. That is how I outline and plot my novels.